Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on YouTube. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it, especially if you love the movies?
Tango Shalom is now available on all VOD
major platforms. I think we messed that up.
Video on demand, or as they say in the trade, VOD.
VOD.
Tango
Shalom is now available on all VOD platforms,
which means
video on demand.
Look how you know. You must be a high school graduate.
I'm a college graduate.
Really?
Yes.
I got an honorary degree from Hofstra. Did you get an honorary degree?
No, I got a degree.
Oh, well, I got honorary. You know, I'm in the Jewish Museum.
What for?
What do you mean? As a famous Jew in the Bronx. I'm in the famous...
I'm in the Prospect Park in the Stones.
How big is the stone?
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
What? This isn't right. This is episode 757. I can't believe it. 757. Get it right, Rob. What is up? I even made a new opening. God damn it. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, the Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, yada, yada, yada. You know, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, your existential Mr. Rogers, me, Robert Meyer Burnett. And unlike the opening credits of this, sometimes there's technical snafus, I'm Rob casting at you on this, the 757th episode of Robservations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, it happened. Yes, it happened today, ladies and gentlemen. Facebook has rebranded itself. I know, you're all like going, wait, what? That's right. Facebook, as of today, I mean, we're going to call it Facebook for a long time, is no longer called Facebook. I know, you're all going, really? It's true. It's called Meta. Facebook is now going to be known as Meta. That is the new name. As far as I'm concerned, Meta is not exactly... that's like calling a car company Car, but that's just me. Anyway, I thought I would delve into this. Like, why is it called Meta? What's all that about? First of all, I'll begin with this New York Times article that'll explain exactly what's going on with Facebook, which, by the way, this has huge ramifications. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Rob, they're trying to deflect from all of the blame that they're going to take in insurrections and all kinds of rhetoric and horrible things that Facebook has been doing, which they should. I mean, big tech, their algorithms demonetized for a minute my show from yesterday because the title was How to Survive a Human Attack, which was the wonderful book about monsters that I covered. That was Kathy Flan's book. But because the title said that, the algorithm demonetized yesterday's channel until I requested a review, a human review. This is our future. Our analytics, our AIs are very imperfect, and they pick keywords out, and they're like, well, how to survive a human attack, that could mean insurgents, that could mean all kinds of things. So rather than do due diligence, they will demonetize you. That's part of what's going on with all of these things as algorithms and AI take over. But this is what Facebook is doing, and it has far-reaching ramifications for all of us. So I want to jump into this. This was in the New York Times today. It was updated at 4:58 Eastern Time. So in the future, a couple hours ago. Facebook renames itself Meta. The social network, under fire for spreading misinformation and other issues, said the change was part of its bet on a next digital frontier called, say it with me now, the metaverse. And I'll get to that word later. San Francisco. Facebook rose to prominence over the past 2 decades with some of the world's most recognizable branding, a big blue letter F. No longer. On Thursday, the social networking giant took an unmistakable step toward an overhaul, de-emphasizing, by the way, this article was written by Mike Isaac in the New York Times. On Thursday, the social networking giant took an unmistakable step toward an overhaul, de-emphasizing Facebook's name and rebranding itself as Meta. The change was accompanied by a new corporate logo designed like an infinity-shaped symbol that was slightly askew. Facebook and its other apps, such as Instagram and WhatsApp, will remain, but under the Meta umbrella. The move punctuates how Mark Zuckerberg, the chief executive, plans to refocus his Silicon Valley company on what he sees as the next digital frontier, which is the unification of disparate digital worlds into something called the metaverse. At the same time, renaming Facebook may help distance the company from social networking controversies it's facing. Please. What are we, all stupid? Oh, wait, don't answer that. At the same time, renaming Facebook may help distance the company from the social networking controversies it's facing, including how it is used to spread hate speech and misinformation. I've been thinking a lot about our identity with this new chapter, Mr. Zuckerberg said, speaking at a virtual event on Thursday to showcase Facebook's technological bets on the future. Over time, I hope we're seen as a metaverse company. With the change, Mr. Zuckerberg telegraphed that his company was going beyond today's social networking, which Facebook has been built on since it was founded 17 years ago. Having Facebook as the corporate name when the company now owned many apps and was fundamentally about connecting people was no longer tenable, he said. That was especially the case, Mr. Zuckerberg said, as Facebook has committed to building a composite universe, melding online, virtual, and augmented worlds that people can seamlessly traverse. He has said that this concept, known as the metaverse, can be the next major social platform, and that several tech companies will build it over the next 10-plus years. On Monday, Facebook had signaled its intent to be a big player when it separated its virtual reality and augmented reality business into a division known as Facebook Reality Labs. But evolving Facebook into a metaverse company will take time since the concept is theoretical and may take years to achieve. Facebook and its sister apps also remain a giant business, generating more than $86 billion in annual revenue and serving more than 3.5 billion people globally. The time of the name change has a double advantage. Facebook has grappled with some of the most intense scrutiny in its history in recent weeks. Lawmakers and the public have criticized its Instagram photo-sharing app for hurting some teenagers' self-esteem, and the company has faced questions for its role in amplifying misinformation and stirring unrest with inflammatory content. The outcry reached a fever pitch after Frances Haugen, a former Facebook employee, leaked internal documents that showed how much the company knew about the harmful effects it was causing. Findings from Mrs. Haugen's documents were first published by the Wall Street Journal and then other media organizations, including the New York Times. The revelations have led to a slew of congressional hearings, as well as legal and regulatory scrutiny. On Monday, Ms. Haugen spoke to British lawmakers in Parliament and urged them to regulate Facebook. On Tuesday, Facebook told its employees to preserve internal documents and communications since 2016 that pertain to its businesses because governments and legislative bodies had started inquiries into its operations. Corporate rebrands are rare but have precedent. They have generally been used to signal a company's structural reorganization or to distance a company from a toxic reputation. In 2015, Google restructured itself under new parent company Alphabet, dividing itself into separate companies to better differentiate its internet search business from the moonshot bets it was making in other areas. In 2011, Netflix announced its plan to cleave its video business into two parts, briefly renaming its DVD by mail arm as Quickster. How'd that work out for him? After The Verge reported last week that Facebook might change its name, social media erupted with less desirable comparisons. Some recalled how Philip Morris, the tobacco giant, rebranded itself to Altria Group in 2001 after years of reputational damage over health costs and effects of cigarettes on the American public. How many of you people know Philip Morris as Altria? I thought so. Nicholas Clegg, Facebook's vice president for global policy and communications, has rejected the comparisons, calling them extremely misleading. Facebook's name change is largely cosmetic. It will begin trading under the stock ticker MVRS beginning on December 1st. The company will also rebrand some of its virtual reality products as Meta, shifting away from the original brand name of Oculus. The company was not restructured and no executive changes were announced. Mr. Zuckerberg also remains chief executive and chairman. He holds majority voting power over any changes that could affect the future of the company. No matter what Mark Zuckerberg calls it, it will remain Zuckerberg Incorporated until he relinquishes some power and yields to functional corporate governance, says Jennifer Greigel, an associate professor and social media researcher at Syracuse University. For months, Facebook has been building up to the metaverse announcement. Last year, it released its newest virtual reality headsets, the Oculus Quest 2. In August, it unveiled virtual reality service called Horizon Workrooms, a virtual meeting room where people using the virtual reality headsets can gather as if they were at an in-person work meeting. And in September, it announced a new line of eyewear with Rebrands, which can record videos. Perfect for your porn at home. These products are all pieces of the metaverse, which Mr. Zuckerberg acknowledged on Thursday. They sounded like science fiction. No, they do sound like science fiction because beginning back in 1984, when we first had William Gibson's Neuromancer released, or where the actual term metaverse came from, one of my favorite books I ever read, Neil Stephenson's 1992 Snow Crash. It is science fiction, and the entire tech world has held up books like Neuromancer and specifically Snow Crash as a map to the future, because they were, and they are, even though Snow Crash is 29 years old. Andre Bosworth, Facebook's chief technology officer, has also said that the metaverse will need significant technological breakthroughs to happen, and that the company was working on new versions of virtual reality and augmented reality hardware to make them smaller, less expensive, and more immersive. Even so, Mr. Zuckerberg on Thursday talked up the idea as the successor to the mobile internet, and said mobile devices would no longer be the focal points. The building blocks for the metaverse were also already available, he said. In a demonstration, he showed a digital avatar of himself that transported to different digital worlds while talking to friends and family, no matter where they were on the planet. You're really going to feel like you're there with other people, he said. You're not going to be locked into one world or one platform. It's like these guys, didn't you watch Ready Player One? We're all way ahead of you. If you're an anime fan or you're a science fiction fan, I mean, you're already there, man. You've understood the metaverse for decades. Like many of my audience right now that you're watching, if someone asked you what the metaverse was, you wouldn't have to talk about it like it's this, people can travel all over the world and it'll be just like you're there. Oh, I don't know. You mean like having an avatar in Second Life? I mean, we get it. What PlayStation 3 had a little hub you could meet at 10 years ago. We get it. We understand what the metaverse is. It's been around for a while. Or the idea of it has. And now it's becoming a reality. Not that anyone doubted it ever would. Mr. Zuckerberg said creating the metaverse would take work across different technology companies, new forms of governance, and other elements that would not come in the short term. But he laid out several areas where the metaverse would be applicable, citing video gaming, fitness, and work. Mr. Zuckerberg showed Horizon Workrooms, a virtual conference room product where colleagues could work together remotely on different projects that they might have once done at the office. He talked up several immersive video games, and he demonstrated Horizon Worlds, a virtual reality-based social network where friends and family could come together and interact. Success will depend partly on attracting others to create new apps and programs that work in the metaverse. As with the mobile app economy, users are more likely to join new computing ecosystems if there are programs and software for them to use. As a result, Mr. Zuckerberg said he would continue offering low-cost or free services to developers and invest in attracting more developers through creator funds and other capital injections. Among other things, Facebook has earmarked $150 million for developers who create new kinds of immersive learning apps and programs. We are fully committed to this. It is the next chapter of our work. Here's the thing. You know what I'm not hearing? And I've read a lot of articles about Facebook coming out. Basically, Facebook is coming out with a virtual universe they're calling the metaverse. All right? Now, Facebook is in trouble because of all the, we were spreading disinformation. Here's the first thing that the metaverse needs that I think that it doesn't have yet. Law enforcement. Ethics committees. Yeah. We need to start thinking about the new metaverse. If you think about it, the virtual environments that we're already existing in, the internet, social media, has been around basically in its present form all the way back to, let's just make it easy. Let's call it 26 years. Let's say 1995. Even if you go back to the whole Earth electronic link, the well, it started earlier than that, or the DARPA net or anything like that. Yes, I understand it goes back further, but most of us started getting AOL discs in the mail in 95? We were going on and we were in chat rooms and having illicit love affairs on the internet for about 26 years. If you're going to create a metaverse, first of all, it's going to end up having to be open source, or everybody's going to create their own metaverse. We're going to have the multiverse. We're going to have a multiverse of metaverses is where we're going with all this. But the problem is, like with social media has proven it can be used by bad actors. The entire internet can be used by bad actors to start ransomware attacks en masse against foreign countries. We don't have any kind of... They're building the same thing that Facebook built in the beginning, and there's no thought of ethical or moral oversight. And I'm no moral prude, but we're gonna have a lot of ethical and moral questions to start asking. If you think that teenage girls who are made insecure because their Instagram filters don't cover up how unhappy they are, wait till the metaverse starts and we have, God only knows what virtual worlds people are creating. I can only imagine, as a Jew, come to my virtual concentration camp. Watch me persecute the avatars of other Jews. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but you're going to have some right-wing organization who's gathering up, or fascist groups. I mean, it's going to get ugly fast. And if you think it won't, you haven't been reading your science fiction. And I would ask everybody who wants to think about the metaverse. I mean, Neuromancer is a little bit of a tough slog, I will admit. But I will say that Neil Stephenson's book, where the term metaverse was first uttered or first written down, is one of the most entertaining science fiction novels I have ever read. Hell, it's one of the most entertaining novels I've ever read. And I will ask you this: if you are not hooked on Snow Crash, when in the first 2 pages, when our main character, hero protagonist, that's right, hero protagonist must deliver Uncle Enzo's Cosa Nostra pizza within 60 seconds or whatever the hell it is on his rocket-powered skateboard. If you're not in, and many people might not be, but I guarantee you will be, you're in for a ride. You like Ready Player One is like the young adult version of Snow Crash. So if you like Ready Player One, and without the ridiculous amounts of pop culture references, Snow Crash is the book Ready Player One wants to be. It's an incredible novel, and I think that, again, when I start reading about we're going to create a new universe, well, let me tell you something. If we don't have any kind of moral or ethical oversight, and by the way, I have no idea what that is. I don't know what that means. I don't know what there's David Cronenberg's new movie is called Crimes of the Future. And one of the underlying basic tenets of the film is that Crimes of the Future, at least as it used to be written when I read the script originally like 25 years ago, there was a division of law enforcement that was created to go after criminals and crimes that had yet to be even classified as crimes because they were so far in advance of where we were at. And not exactly like Minority Report, But you'll see. And I would imagine that's part of the script. The main character in the original Crimes of the Future script that I had read was a cop undercover in an organization that was participating in some interesting shenanigans. I'll leave it at that. But I think that that's really where we're at now, is who's going to police the metaverse? And everyone's saying, well, Rob, it's got to be open source. You're still dealing with mankind. Humankind, pardon me. We're not a nice bunch. You know, we might want to talk about kumbaya and inclusion and diversity or whatever, but that's really only your American brand of inclusion and diversity. You really don't want real inclusion and diversity, do you? No, because there's large swaths of this planet that have social and morality, social issues and morality that are diametrically opposed to, say, ours in the West. So how does your inclusion and diversity mandates deal with those places? Well, they don't. And no one's, I mean, we have really complex moral and ethical questions that we have to ask ourselves when we're talking about the metaverse. And I don't see, as they announce this, oh, it's just going to be amazing technology. And I agree. I want to be able to jump between the metaverse, or let's call it the multiverse of metaverses. I mean, my God, you thought Crisis on Infinite Earths was a conundrum. You thought Endgame was a conundrum. You thought Star Trek Coda Book 2 continued the conundrum of the best Star Trek going. Sorry, Star Trek Prodigy. I'll get to that tomorrow. But, I mean, there's a lot happening. And we better, otherwise we're going to have the same ethical and moral concerns that we have now. It's just the metaverse is going to amplify them beyond exponentially. We'll see. Anyway, I want to talk about the metaverse because I found this article I also wanted to read on omr.com, and I figured just a little bit more background on Meta and the metaverse. This article was written by Roland Eisenbrand and Scott Peterson, and it was published on September 11th, 2020. How a dystopian science fiction novel continues to influence the biggest tech players. It seems that whenever the world's tech elite starts talking about their vision of how the internet of tomorrow will be, there's one term they're apt to drop: metaverse. The term first appeared in the 1992 science fiction novel Snow Crash, which has left a lasting impression on the founders of Google, Amazon, and Facebook. Today, we're breaking down what the term means on the surface and what it means moving forward, why it's in vogue again, and what industry players are tapped to pull off creating a metaverse. Snow Crash was really 10 years ahead of its time. Or in the case, it was really 29 years ahead of its time. It kind of anticipated what's going to happen, and I find that really interesting, said Sergey Brin in an interview from the year 2000. Okay, he's right, I didn't realize that. The Google co-founder lists the science fiction romp as one of the two books that had a particular influence on him. No Snow Crash, no Google Earth. Snow Crash, there's a brief synopsis on Wikipedia. Don't go read the synopsis. Read the goddamn book because it's that fucking good. Snow Crash paints a bleak dystopian future dominated by technology in which the state has almost entirely retreated from the fore. The world is run by mega conglomerates and inequality is extreme. Hero protagonist, and that's hero like the Japanese word, hero protagonist, the novel's protagonist hero, delivers pizzas and ends up getting tangled in the search for an enigmatic drug called Snow Crash. Author Neil Stephenson says he never really saw himself as anticipating the future. The book was just me making shit up, he told Vanity Fair in an interview in 2017. Well, he was making shit up in a very educated, very researched way. Nevertheless, Stephenson's prognostications not only struck a nerve across Silicon Valley, but several products, concepts, and circumstances predate the digital age. The term avatar, for instance, now firmly entrenched in popular usage, was a novelty at the time. Then there's an ingenious piece of technology featured in the book called Earth, which can only be described in a manner eerily reminiscent of Google Earth, which has been around since 2001, nearly a decade after Snow Crash first hit shelves. Facebook sees metaverse potential in Oculus. Another central concept to Snow Crash is that of the aforementioned metaverse, a kind of parallel digital world in which people flee from the bleak reality of the present. a world that exists in permanent parallel and entirely independent to the real physical world, and complete with its own currency and economy, where people can communicate and interact with one another simultaneously and in real time. Google founder Sergey Brin is not the only A-list tech founder influenced by the concept. While Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has never publicly mentioned Snow Crash, which he didn't in the conference today, only that it's science fiction. Oh, you mean science fiction as, that was in one science fiction novel in particular, Snow Crash? Because by God, you wouldn't want to give Neil Stephenson any, cheddar for his ideas, would you, buddy? I get it. I understand. Mark Zuckerberg has never publicly mentioned Snow Crash. He did tease the concept in a March 2014 post on Facebook. In it, he announces that his company recently acquired VR glasses manufacturer Oculus and lays out his vision for the company moving forward. 2 editors at Bloomberg and a journalist at Forbes all pen responses to the post that Zuckerberg has designs on building a metaverse. Required reading at Facebook, even prior to that, Snow Crash was an apparent source of inspiration for Facebook managers. At the beginning of the decade, it was even required reading for Facebook's management team, like Dean Eccles, active at Facebook from 2010 to 2015 in the Central Data Science team, among other areas, posted in his personal blog. Amazon founder and multi-billionaire Jeff Bezos is apparently friends with Neil Stephenson. After watching a film together in 1999, the Snow Crash author is reported to have inspired Bezos to found his aviation company Blue Origin. Stephenson was the first member of staff at Blue Origin and remained at the company until 2006. It's not Stephenson's only direct contact to Silicon Valley. From 2014 to May 2020, Stephenson was active as the chief futurist at AR company Magic Leap. Epic Games on its way to the metaverse status, skeptics would argue that there is no evidence suggesting that the idea will have any success. They could be right. Just look at Second Life, a virtual world whose massive popularity at the turn of the decade quickly faded, or at the failure of AR and VR glasses to break through the mainstream despite being touted as the next big thing for years. So why is the term back in vogue? A major reason figures to be Tim Sweeney, founder and CEO of Epic Games. His company developed the Unreal gaming engine, operates the Epic Games Store, and last but not least is behind the hit game Fortnite. Sweeney, it seems, has been fascinated by the metaverse concept for some time, like everybody who read Snow Crash in 1992. For years, he's spoken publicly about the concept, held presentations at industry events, and recently gave a 47-minute interview on the subject. In 2019, Sweeney told Business Insider that his goal with Epic Games is to build a virtual social world that's something like the metaverse. In early August of this year, meaning 2020, Epic Games announced that it received an additional $1.78 billion in funding. The company is currently valued in US dollars at $17.3 billion. The fresh injection of capital would figure to accelerate Epic Games' efforts to build a new kind of digital ecosystem using real-time 3D technology, aka now what they're using to make The Mandalorian, services and hundreds of other things, services that connect hundreds of millions of people, and a digital storefront that has a fair business model, Sweeney said in an official statement at the conclusion of the round of funding. Companies who have invested in Epic Games include Chinese behemoth Tencent, private equity firm KKR, and investment corporation BlackRock. To get a feel for the potentially successful pulling off a metaverse could have, look no further than the success Fortnite has enjoyed in the past 2 years. First off, the game has massive reach. In March 2019, Sweeney estimated the number of active users to be 250 million. Second, Fortnite has since transcended the confines of being just a game. For many users, Fortnite has become a place of social interactions. In the aforementioned press release on funding, Epic Games mentions 2.5 billion friend connections. And third, the massive reach and user intensity have made Fortnite an attractive content platform for internal companies and brands. Disney, Marvel, and others keen on cameos in Fortnite. That list is led by some of the biggest names in the entertainment and media industry who are now willing to share their tightly protected intellectual property with Epic Games. Disney, for example, is already engaged in several co-ops with Epic Games to promote Star Wars releases and products within Fortnite, including exclusive skins, for those of you who don't know, even though all you do know, but this is an old article, popular characters from the film that can be used as avatars and letting players watch previously unreleased clips from the film The Rise of Skywalker in the Fortnite movie theater. Entertainment company Warner's has cooperated with Fortnite. After showing a first trailer to Christopher Nolan's newest movie Tenet this past June, Fortnite's in-game movie theater also had full-length showings for 3 films by Nolan. Then there's the NFL, which repeatedly has released official team skins in Fortnite. And lastly, for the upcoming Fortnite season, the game follows a schedule similar to a TV show or pro sports league for new content. Players will be able to play as some of the most popular Marvel characters. Apart from the movie and sports industry, there's music as well. Superstar DJ Marshmello gave a virtual concert in Fortnite back in February, which was taken in by 10.7 million people, according to what Epic Games told The Verge. In April 2020, rap star Travis Scott gave 5 separate concerts, at which Epic Games said maxed out at 12.3 million simultaneous attendees and had a total of 27.7 million. For the time being, Fortnite users can only experience the concerts in groups of 100, meaning there is plenty of work to be done by Epic before it reaches true metaverse status and enables millions of people to simultaneously interact with each other. Nevertheless, the traction the events gained and the success they enjoyed figures to have piqued the interest of investors and recharged faith in the idea of a metaverse. There are some new technological advancements on the horizon that could pave the way for a true metaverse. Keep in mind this is a year old. First, the increase to the data transfer rate that the new 5G standard is supposed to bring will enable internet in real time, meaning virtual concerts can be experienced by tens of thousands of persons simultaneously. Then there is the overall acceleration of technology as a result of the corona crisis and its impact in further reducing apprehension of digital experiences among broader segments of the population. The workforce today is frequently forced to ply their trade remotely and is used to interacting with colleagues on Slack and Microsoft Teams and attend virtual meetings on Zoom and Google Meet. Privately, these same people are trading in a social life, AFK, for escapist romps and social games like Fortnite and Animal Crossing, where they can connect with friends and even tie the knot. As such, the idea of a digital parallel world no longer seems so far-flung and is more likely to be met with widespread acceptance than would have been pre-pandemic. It is therefore not surprising that Epic Games is not alone in its efforts to construct a metaverse. The events of the past few weeks indicate that Facebook has never lost sight of this goal. Just a few weeks ago, Facebook unveiled its virtual world Horizon and opened up beta testing to invitees for users with Oculus glasses. Prior to that, Facebook invited several creators to create several worlds and games within Horizon. According to CNBC, these creations range from the Escape the Room-esque games to game shows. Blah, 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 blah. We all know this. This is all stuff you already know, but let me just go to the end. In the U.S. tech scene, Matthew Ball, a venture capitalist at VC firm Makers Fund, has become the leading voice and mind on metaverse subjects. Ball is in the process of establishing a metaverse conference. In a well-received, in-depth essay on the topic, he does not only attempt to define the term and discusses which companies he sees as most likely to be involved in a metaverse one way or another, but also argues that in the future, the metaverse becomes the gateway to most digital experiences, a key component of all physical ones, and the next great labor platform. Companies that are instrumental in ushering this development are agents of its rise, figure to reap incredible economic rewards, according to Ball. Even if the metaverse falls short of the fantastical visions captured by science fiction authors, it is likely to produce trillions in value as a new computing platform or content medium. Make no mistake, people, the metaverse is here, maybe not in its present form. It is not going away, and it's going to be something that we're going to be living with for the rest of our lives. Personally, I'm really excited for things like I'll never be able to do. So when you start sending up, I don't know, whatever it's going to be, LiDAR, HD cameras, say, to the surface of Mars, or when we send up a Europa mission, I'll be able to sit in a virtual room like anyone else, and we'll all be getting the same input from cameras that are on another world. It'll be the closest thing most of us will ever get to landing on another planet. I look forward to that. I think there's great things that the metaverse can bring to us. The metaverse is going to be a place that is going to be with humanity. It's going to get expansive. It's going to get massive. And like I said, there's not just going to be one metaverse, because right now Facebook is under the impression they're building the only one. Wait till, I don't know, Tencent or Alibaba, if Mr. Mao is ever found again, or Mr. Ma. Where are you, Mr. Ma? You think the Chinese don't want to run the metaverse? Or better yet, we really will have a multiverse of metaverses. And it's going to get crazy because whose metaverse do you want to go into? And you will have different avatars in various, it's going to get complicated. It's happening. It is real. And the thing that I'm most interested in is how are we going to police the morality and the ethical principles of these metaverses? Who's going to decide upon them? Because otherwise, if you don't, the same thing that everybody's complaining about big tech and doing is that big tech has no conscience. All it cares about is making money. But at the end of the day, you're building a universe for users. If you don't take into consideration the moral and ethical and spiritual ramifications of what a metaverse means to all of its users, you're going to be back to square one. You think teenage girls have problems with self-image using Instagram? You ain't seen nothing yet. Imagine the dysmorphia problems that are going to occur when people can have avatars that have, 87 different genders. And when they finally get into the real world, who are they? Are they going to know? Will it matter? Maybe you just jump to another multiverse through the virtual quantum realm or however that's going to work. See, these are the questions. I mean, I go back to Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens. I talk about this I've talked about Sapiens for a long time. It's not like this is the greatest book in the world, but it is a great encapsulation of the last 100,000 years of human history. And at the end of the book, Yuval Harari asks, who are we? Humanity needs to define itself. Well, here's a way where you really can. If Facebook is going to build a multiverse, let's have them issue a mission statement about the moral, ethical, sociological, spiritual ramifications of the multiverse that they're building. Are there any? Is there a heaven and hell in the multiverse? Or pardon me, the metaverse? I think there should be. Mainly because I'd like to go hang out in hell for a while. Think about that. You can go to the metaverse hell. And by the way, if Facebook's not going to build one, somebody will. Somebody will. Somebody will make the whole point about these virtual worlds in the metaverse is you can go anywhere. And don't think that there's not going to be a Sodom and Gomorrah. Or don't think that someone's not going to make a Pier Paolo Pasolini's Solo level of the metaverse. Of course, every horrible, awful thing that human beings can think up is all going to be incorporated into the metaverse. And you know what? I don't know how you stop it. And should we? I don't know. Is there going to be ethical oversight into the metaverse? I'm curious because I don't think there will be, to be honest. I don't think people have even thought that far. I mean, no. Sure they have. I mean, what is it, Jordan Lanier? He probably has. I'll go watch a TED Talk. I'm sure there's some TED Talk about the moral and ethical principles behind the metaverse, but we'll see. Look, for me, I'm fascinated because, as I've always said, if you want to know about the future of the world, all you have to do is read great science fiction. I used to think you'd have to read great science fiction in Wired magazine. I wish I had money back in the 90s to invest because I would be Peter Thiel now. Maybe not as politically divisive as he's become, but you know what I mean? I would have been that kind of an investor because I was reading Snow Crash when it came out, and I would have been like, yep, here's where we're all going. Here's my money. Let me make it rain for you tech companies. And, it would have been a good thing. I just never had that. I bought too many action figures and worked on too many independent movies to become someone like Peter Thiel. But hey, I think about it. Hey, if I had a different life, if I liked Star Trek less, maybe I could have been a player in the big tech world. I don't know. But I'm not. So that's okay. Tango Shalom out on VOD tomorrow. But on that note, there's so much to think about, so much to ponder, and like all great science fiction, that's what I love about science fiction as a genre. Our science fiction writers are usually on the forefront, depending on who you're reading, of a bunch of stuff. Now, I've got a bunch of letters. I got so many letters. I can't even begin to tell you how many letters I've got to read. Braxton Bowles. Braxton, of course, young Braxton Bowles, Calvin Bowles' son. Braxton writes in, He wrote this on October 28th. I am dictating this to my... Let me try and do a Braxton voice. I am dictating this to my daddy. This is what I have to say to the guys who did Star Trek Prodigy. Hey guys, do you even know what Star Trek is? I never thought I would see Captain Janeway on a Star Wars show. Why are you making Star Trek look like Star Wars? You guys play unfair. You promised me new Star Trek and you gave me Star Wars with starships. I am so mad. Why can't you not just give me some new Star Trek? I may only be 6, but I know what Trek looks like, and this isn't it. Why can't you just give me some real Star Trek and not fake Star Trek? You guys are grown-ups, and you're on a channel that has lots of real Trek. Why don't you watch those shows and come back and make some real Star Trek? That's what I would do. Please, I beg you. I want some new Trek. Just because you call yourself Star Trek doesn't make your show Star Trek, no more than me calling myself president makes me president. Please stop making me sad, and just make me some new real Trek. Braxton Bowles. God bless you. God bless you, 6-year-old Braxton Bowles. You know what? Not only that, they are pandering to you. Well, we're finally going to make Star Trek that's targeted at the young audience. Hey, you know what? I started watching Star Trek, the original series, when I was 5. And you know what? I loved it. I didn't need someone to infantilize Star Trek for me to be like, oh, I really like it. Oh, this looks like Guardians of the Galaxy. Or it looks like Star Wars, so I'll watch that. No, I watched Star Trek. Know why? Because it was Star Trek! That's why I watched it. That's why lots of kids watched it. I played Star Trek on the playground at Island Park Elementary School. We even had a tree that had a bump in it where you could stand there and it looked like Spock's scanner. The idea, this whole thought, well, we're going to make Star Trek that's going to act like a gateway to younger audiences. Braxton, I'm glad you said that Star Trek Prodigy is not Star Trek. I believe, personally, that unless your main characters are, in fact, humanoid life forms being led by people from Earth, it kind of misses the point as to what Star Trek is. Call it something else. Maybe, you're looking at something in the Star Trek universe. That could be cool. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. But, yeah. Braxton, God bless you, sir. You're a great kid. This is only Diet Coke, but cheers to you. This next letter comes from Dennis Chapman. It's a long one, so buckle up. Hello, Rob. The time has come to speak of Bond. James Bond, the suave British secret agent who always got the girls, dispatched the villain, and captured the hearts of movie lovers all over the world since 1962. I first saw Sean Connery in the Disney flick Darby O'Gill and the Little People in 1959 in downtown Orlando when I was 9. Wow, you were born in 1950. That's rad. That means, what, you're 71 now? I love that you watch this show, Dennis. While the Banshee scared the shit out of me, the future Bond was rather insipid as the hopeful love interest of Darby's daughter. He got the girl, but who gave a damn? Transitioned through the years of movie matinee weekends to 1965, and I was excited to see the provocative Bond film called Thunderball. I'd missed the forbidden fruit of the first 3 movies, but the 15-year-old kid that was me sat transfixed with the goings-on of this ruthless yet appealing secret agent who was impeccably dressed and drank unknown elixirs, shaken, not stirred. The same way I drank my future Manhattans. Not that I cared about what he drank then, but he was cool. As much as I enjoyed the Bond girls, the misogyny was a little disconcerting in the pre-women's liberation era. Then I realized this Connery guy was the idiot from Darby O'Gill. Damn if that bumbling fool can end up with beautiful women and beating the bad guys, but there was actually hope for the nerd that was me. And oh my God, that stunning John Barry score. I was hooked. I saw You Only Live Twice in 1967 and brought myself up to date with the first 3 Bond films, which I loved. I remember thinking Dr. No and Goldfinger were epic. Not as sensational as Thunderball, my first, but From Russia with Love seemed a little more sedate than the others. It reminded me of Cary Grant in North by Northwest. I caught on Her Majesty's Secret Service in college in 1970 and was delighted to see my beloved Emma Peel, Diana Rigg from the UK's Avengers TV show, as the latest Bond girl. Former model George Lazenby's acting chops were pedestrian as 007, but the transitional Bond flick movie itself displayed an unexpected verisimilitude lacking in its predecessors. The death of Tracy in the finale was heartbreaking and never forgotten. That closing Louis Armstrong song is my favorite Bond theme of all time. It was also apparently the makers of No Time to Die's favorite, too. It was fun to see Sean Connery return in 1971, and although Diamonds Are Forever has many problems, it's still one of my favorites. I'm quite sure snarky Jill St. John had a lot to do with that, and she's a redhead. Then came the Roger Moore era. Each film got more outrageous and less relevant than its predecessors, and Moore was definitely a Bond for the 1970s. A slick, devil-may-care-less secret agent for the next generation. Charming and debonair in exotic locales and bombastic situations, but the allure was gone for me. Because, you see, your first James Bond is always your best, or so I thought at the time. 1987, the year of my second marriage, and the fourth Bond actor premieres. In The Living Daylights, Timothy Dalton was just sullen and nasty as the old misogyny crept back in. Overkill after Roger Moore's frivolity. There was very little joy in watching Daylights, but hope is eternal, so I saw his second attempt at 007 in '89 with License to Kill. The title summed it up. 95's GoldenEye gave us, in my opinion, the best Bond since Connery and Pierce Brosnan, combining the positive qualities of both Sean and Roger. I found the story engaging, and my God, what a cast. Famke Janssen thrilled as the leggy assassin Onatopp. Judi Dench was the best M ever, and Sean Bean was riveting as the former 006 turned vengeful bad guy. Pierce may have knocked it out of the park with that one, but it was only one time. Once again, I snoozed through more mediocre Bonds as one century ended and another began. Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and the wretched Die Another Day convinced me yet again to put a fork in the franchise. It was done. Or so I thought. In 2006, 007 got a soft reboot in Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. As the spy genre was being actively redefined by numerous action movies and anti-heroes, led by Mission Impossible, Bourne, and Batman, it was a tough act for Bond to follow. As the refreshed franchise struggled to find its place in the new century, the competition exploded with more contenders like The Fast and the Furious, the MCU, Taken, Salt, and more recently, John Wick. But back to the new Bond. I knew I was in for a wild ride when Chris Cornell's incredible song You Know My Name started, but as I watched Casino Royale, it was a little difficult recognizing this lifelong character in the blonde, handsomely craggy, no pun intended actor. Craig seemed the least looking Bond of all. It interfered with the narrative's progression for me. This new guy was tough as nails, brutal in moments, yet amazingly genteel and truly empathetic as well. This I had never seen in any former actor who played the role. However, the new Bond persona was a hit for me when he said the final three words, Bond. James Bond. This new James Bond totally earned the theme song that exploded from the speakers. I was overjoyed. Craig was an equal to Connery, and his performances always rose above subsequent lackluster material, but like all the Bond reboots, to me, the promise of greatness was temporary. I won't go into details about the widely uneven follow-ups, Quantum of Solace, what the fuck, Skyfall, sorry Rob, I really like that one, and Spectre. However, the scene from Spectre when the attractive and smart Dr. Madeline Swan walks up to Bond in that silver silk dress makes her the greatest Bond girl ever. Maybe. I went to the movies last Tuesday for the first time since Avengers Endgame to see No Time to Die. I was in a race against time to see the film to avoid potential spoilers. It was like dodging bullets in a spy movie. Badly in need of editing, much too long and many unnecessary scenes in the first half. It disappointed in some ways. Did we really need a second 007? Although I understand why Lashana Lynch was cast from a diversity point of view, I would have preferred more of the interesting Ana de Armas, Craig's co-star in Knives Out, as an active agent throughout the movie. At the end, when Lewis once again sang, "We have all the time in the world," I wept. Not giving away any spoilers, I will say it was ultimately bittersweet, but a capable ending to my lifelong association with the Ian Fleming character. In closing, this 71-year-old with lots more than 1 foot in the grave is satisfied with saying, Goodbye, Mr. Bond. Thank you for all the memories. And thank you, Robert, for all you give us and enriching the lives of imagination connoisseurs everywhere. Since art is allegedly subjective, your younger viewers may not agree with my assessment of Bond, James Bond. Sometimes an opinion is based on ideas you formed before others were born, and therefore are unrelatable to them. That's cool, and that's life. Shalom, my friend. I remain Dennis Chip Chapman. Well, Dennis, what a fantastic letter. More of those, please, good sir. I quite enjoy that. That was a fantastic letter. My God. Is this why I love you people? You are the best audience on YouTube. Absolutely, you are. So, yeah, it's very, very exciting. Let's see. This comes from John Sindro. Sindro, I hope I'm getting it. Sindro? John. What makes me particularly excited by Denis Villeneuve's Dune is what it says about a potential part 3. Now I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, since a part 2 has barely just been announced. But the way that Villeneuve directed the first movie is encouraging for how a 3-part arc could play out. One of the issues with Frank Herbert's writing is that he crams so many fascinating concepts into his stories that it is sometimes hard to disentangle the core themes of the novels from the many other ideas that are thrust upon the reader, including Herbert's personal side rants. Mr. Villeneuve seems to be on a golden path to successfully doing so. He discarded or minimalized many elements that we faithful readers certainly missed. The mystery plot surrounding the traitor, the Mentats, the Butlerian Jihad, gender roles, and Duke Leto's refusal to marry Lady Jessica, the delicate political economic equilibrium of the Empire pulled apart by the Spacing Guild, CHOAM, and the Landsrad, and along, etc., etc. But this also shows that Mr. Villeneuve has correctly identified the core themes of the Dune saga as a whole, and not just limited himself, as most before him, to mapping the plot of the first book. Dune is about how imperialism, religious fervor, and the weight of bureaucracies can lead to the rise of false messiahs, and how these messiahs, themselves tragic figures, are unable to stop the power they unleash, which is itself the result of the determinism of big complex systems. By the way, what a great... Let me read that again, because, wow, this is so spot on, Jason. Dune is about how imperialism, religious fervor, and the weight of bureaucracies can lead to the rise of false messiahs, and how these messiahs, themselves tragic figures, are unable to stop the power they unleash, which is itself the result of the determinism of big, complex systems. You know, kind of like America. Digging even deeper, the Dune saga is an intellectual inquiry into the nature of free will, which simply cannot be rationally understood. It asks the question, could humanity ever become free of determinism imposed by genes and the material conditions of ecological systems? Or are we the same as machines? And furthermore, does this quest justify the actions of tragic tyrants like Muad'Dib or the God Emperor? Mr. Villeneuve's film adaptations won't be intellectual treatises on this subject, nor should they be. But his focus on Paul's journey and prescient visions suggest that he has understood the larger themes that this epic science fiction story is grappling with. I have long held up hope that someone could do justice to Dune on the big screen. But Mr. Villeneuve has the chance to do something even larger, to do justice to the entire saga of Paul Muad'Dib. That's from John Sindro. John, fucking spot on, son. What a great letter. Well, you guys are on fire today. My God. Mark Nadeau. This, I want to say, you originally, I believe, marked this private, but I'm going to read it because I think it's something to share. Mark asks, hi, Rob. I was wondering if you'd ever read the Necroscope series by Brian Lumley. Yes, I have. I don't know if I've read them all. I must have read 5 or 6 of them, but you had to, like, in terms of when I was on my 80s horror tear, you had to read the Necroscope books. They were, like, essential. The Necroscope books by Brian Lumley. Morgan Freeman's production company has bought the rights just recently. I love the first 5 books when they came out. I couldn't put them down as they read like a movie to me. What are your thoughts? Well, the Necroscope books are a very interesting take on vampirism and the whole really interesting stuff. I love them. And I did not know Morgan Freeman, his production companies, bought them. But that makes sense to me because they would make great movies. And I you know what? As horror novels go, I recommend the Necroscope series. Yeah, I think that's great. Now, this is interesting. This letter comes from our own Jason Webster. Uh-oh, Jason. Jason, he who loves to write many, many people's names in letters. Hi, Robert. I hope yourself and the cool congregation that compromised the you wrote Post-Geek Singularity. Post-Geek Singularity, the most inclusive community on YouTube, has had a terrific week so far. Well, it's October, and with Halloween fast approaching, I began to sit and collect my thoughts on horror films I consider my favorites. We all love horror films as we get to sit in a darkened theater or a dark room as they provide visceral assaults of the senses, rich, atmospheric cinematography, great production design with good stories, relatable characters, and memorable dialogue we can all recite ad nauseum. They provide audiences with chills, spills, and kills, and showcase the human condition, the courage and spirit of the hero or protagonist, and the malevolence of the villain or antagonist. The horror genre provided actors and actresses such as Vincent Price, Lon Chaney Jr., Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Robert Englund, Michael Rooker, Kurt Russell, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Bruce Campbell the opportunity to establish reputations, carve out long, extraordinary careers to become revered as legends in the industry. Patrick Wilson, Tom Hiddleston, Chloe Grace Moretz, Amanda Seyfried, Jane Levy, Anya Taylor-Joy, Samara Weaving, and Florence Pugh are carving out good reputations as actors or modern screen queens. Horror films have allowed makeup artists such as Jack Pierce, Rick Baker, Rob Bottin, Stan Winston, Chris Walas, and Greg Canham to explore the boundaries of their imagination and create creatures that have become indelible icons such as the Frankenstein's monster in James Whale's Frankenstein from 1931. The Kessler Werewolf in John Landis's An American Werewolf in London from 1981. The Blair Monster in John Carpenter's The Thing from 82. Brundlefly in Cronenberg's The Fly from 86. And The Wolfen Dracula in Francis Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. All some of the most terrifyingly gruesome creations ever to be seen on the silver screen. As viewers and fans of films and consumers of all types of media, we have our favorites and guilty pleasures. Though we might share similar tastes in some films, we will have others we choose as our favorites because they speak to our personality or touch us on a personal or emotional level. We will have films we love because of these stories and others because of their visual aesthetic. There will be some because they feature our favorite actors in the lead roles or are helmed by directors we admire. So with Halloween moving quickly upon us, I have composed a list of my favorite horror films of all time. Many within the Post-Geek Singularity will know I'm a great fan of South Korean and Japanese cinema. Within the horror genre, they have certainly contributed K-horror and J-horror films that are some of the best films to have been released in the last few decades. The film industries in those respective countries have grown in stature and sophistication over the past couple of decades. Even films within the horror genre that have been released feature amazing stories that resonate with audiences, world-class acting, rich cinematography, and outstanding production design and practical effects. Also, members of the PGS will know I'm a fan of Takashi Miike and Scion Sono, or Miike. It's Takashi Miike. I always mispronounce it. And Scion Sono, by the way, I'm big fans of both of those directors. And we were talking about Suicide Club just today. And will not be surprised to notice a couple of their films on my list. It will come as no surprise there are John Carpenter films on my list. The films on my list are the ones I immensely enjoy and have watched numerous times. Without further ado, here's my list of favorite horror films of all time. A Tale of Two Sisters from 2003. Phone from 2002. Train to Busan from 2016. Whispering Corridors Voice from 2005. Thirst from 2009. Over Your Dead Body from 2014. Ringu from 1998. Bedeviled from 2010. Noriko's Dinner Table from 2005. Dark Water from 2002. #Alive from 2020. The Thing from 82. Alien from 79. An American Werewolf in London from 81. Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. Evil Dead from 2013. Ooh, the remake, not the original. Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn from 1987. Suspiria from 1977. You went with the original. All right. Dawn of the Dead, 78. Again, the original. If you had not said Dawn of the Dead, the original, I would have stopped reading your list. The Fog from 1980. Halloween from 1978. The Conjuring 2 from 2016. Insidious from 2011. Insidious 2 from 2013. The Cabin in the Woods from 2011. Ginger Snaps from 2000. Fright Night for real. From 1985. Return of the Living Dead, also from 85. Bush and Saba from 2004, and Tag from 2015. If anyone in the PGS would like me to write a review on any of the films on my list, just let me know in the chat. Well, that's all for me. I wish yourself, your magnificent moderators, and the magnificent members of the Post-Geek Singularity to experience a weekend filled with serendipitous joy and wonder, and a happy Halloween. Another great letter. Thanks for that one. I appreciate that. Omar94 writes in, hi, Rob, moderators and the Post-Geek Singularity. Chris Stuckman, there's this little buzzing thing around me. Chris Stuckman recently made a video on the last Duel bombing at the box office, and I thought about that since I noticed something. This is not always the case, but there are many movies that have recognition now but were not hits when they came out. It's a Wonderful Life flopped when it originally came out, but it later became a classic after it started coming on TV. The Abyss was a box office disappointment when it came out, but it would later get recognition from people, with it now being arguably James Cameron's most underrated movie. Shawshank Redemption flopped when it came out in theaters, but it became a much beloved film after coming out on TV regularly. The Iron Giant flopped when it came out in theaters, but became something of a classic to people after it came out on home video and TV. In my case, there were 3 movies which I didn't go see when they came out, which I probably should have since I liked them after seeing them. They all flopped in theaters, and they all developed loyal fans. Those 3 movies were John Carter, Man from U.N.C.L.E., and The Nice Guys. I like all 3 of those movies, Omar. Good taste there, sir. Now, granted, I had problems with all 3 of them, but I did still like them and would like to have seen them in theaters if I could go back in time. I don't exactly know why, but the only guesses I could make for movies not doing well originally could be a lack or incorrect form of marketing, or just tastes and audiences being different from what was coming out at the time. Thanks, and live long and prosper, Omar. I'm going to add something to that list of movies that have yet to come out that I think are going to develop a following as they are reassessed. Eternals. I could be wrong about it, but I think Eternals is going to be something that people are going to like after they have reconsidered it. Already it has been deemed, people have been, it hasn't even come out anywhere, but it's been deemed a failure. Critics, everybody's talking about you know what? No one is actually, everyone's talking about, well, the Eternals are here to keep the world safe from the deviants. No, that's not what the Eternals are there to do. And nobody's mentioning that in their reviews. That is just the superficial thing that the deviants, that the Eternals deviants battle is there for. And I'm not going to tell you what but it's wrong. And everybody, one of the reasons I really liked, I'm just going to say this. I said 2 things about this movie. I really enjoy the cosmology of it as it relates to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And 2, I see it as the flip side of what Prometheus wanted to be. If the engineers were sent to Earth rather than they just, disintegrated into the river, but they stuck around, which, by the way, it's insinuated that they did. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure Chloe Zhao said, I want to do a movie from the engineers' point of view because the engineers were part of human history. As we learned from Prometheus in the beginning with the cave paintings and all that shit, and there's something else going on that no one's even talking about. I mean, there's so many interesting conundrums in the Eternals that aren't showing up in anyone's reviews. They're not talking about what I found to be the most interesting elements of the film, which I'll talk about later after you've seen it. I don't want to get into it because it's way, way, way too spoilerific-y. So let's see who's here. I'm going to go see who's here. Well, wouldn't you know it, with all the World of Time stuff that's been dropping everywhere, I can't even imagine that Stubble McShave is even coherent. I mean, I would just be in a constant state of orgasm if I were him. Stubble says, for those interested in soundtracks, check out the Dusty Wheels 10-hour live stream of the World of Time trailer drop. Wow. At 7 hours and 37 minutes, there's a 30-minute interview with composer Lauren Balfe. They play one theme and talk about the 4 albums released for the first season of Wheel of Time. Whoa, I did not know that. Oh my God, you must be loving life. Loving life. Mr. Tickletrunk sends in a tip and says, why don't they just rename Facebook to Big Brother and get this over with? I know you'd think that, but you know, they're still building the future. Facebook is building the future. Yeah. Michael Preston says, on a more important note, I will be receiving tomorrow my greatest physical media, Tango Shalom, the new standard for Halloween. And I'll watch Halloween. Well, I love that. Yes, hopefully they'll send it to you. It'll come out tomorrow. Darth Plato says, I loved Kathy as a guest, Rob. An interesting take for sure. Michael Preston is referring to Kathy Flann, the author of How to Survive a Human Attack, who was on the show yesterday. Boy, I loved her. I wish I had met her before. We would be fast friends. She was delightful, so smart, so funny. By the way, I can't recommend her book enough. It's so much fun, and I'm glad you really enjoyed her on here. I thought she was a terrific guest, a great interview. I definitely want to do more of those. Kevin sends in a super chat and says, after watching Dune, my first reaction was, fuck yeah, that's how Star Wars should feel like. Well, thanks, Kevin. Cheers from, you know what, I'm looking at this flag icon, and I can't see it with my addled eyesight, so I don't know, I can't tell where you're writing from. And I should know that from my flags of the world, but I'm not quite sure. It's really small. Mr. Tickletrunk says, if people think that social media's echo chambers are an issue now, leaking bad attitudes and confirmation biases into meat space from cyberspace, just wait until we live in a universe that confirms our biases. Yeesh. Mr. Tickletrunk, I couldn't agree with you more. And if they're going to create the metaverse and they're not going to think about the moral, ethical, spiritual ramifications of all of that and what it's going to mean to us as human beings, they're not doing their jobs. They're not doing their jobs. And I think it's properly horrifying that's the case. Scotty, Mr. Burnett, ahoy and thank you. Quick question. Live and Let Die, great Bond movie or the greatest Bond movie? Dated Bond film. Live and Let Die has some good stuff in it, but I would say this. To me, Live and Let Die is egregious in its aping of... It's a blaxploitation movie. And I think it has portrayals that are definitely problematic now. Great theme song, though. I thought Roger Moore was okay as Bond. I like the transition. But every time I watch Live and Let Die, it feels monumentally dated to me on many different levels. But yeah. Mikey Lito, hello, Mikey. How are you? It'd be nice if folks tried real life and not meta life. You know, I tend to agree with that, but unfortunately, I have to say, and this is a weird thing for me to say, like, unless you can afford to live your best life, and I think it's hard. The one thing that virtual life, I think that what virtual life is going to do, I ultimately think that it has the potential to impact humanity in a positive way, but humanity has to take it upon themselves. Like, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? And, you know, the exchange of information. Here we have the greatest information technology that we've ever had. And are we using it? I mean, look, mankind is not exactly a very evolved species. We think we are, but we're really not. We can't even, like, you don't see any other animals polluting their environments to the point of making those environments toxic where they have to leave. Only we do that. And we've already done that in meat space. So imagine all the craziness we're going to bring to a meta universe. But I agree with you. I mean, but we have to do it all kind of at the same time, you know. Michael Preston, thanks for being an imagination connoisseur for 11 months. That's very nice of you. Thank you for that. And, of course, we will, hopefully, if Roberto Suarez says so, we will be having a member meeting tomorrow. If not, I mean, I could still run that member meeting, although don't know if I can get everybody in here, but we'll see. Alexander Wilson sends in a tip and says, Amazon and Apple missed on their earnings estimates for the quarter. The global supply chain issues are causing havoc. It gave Apple a $6 billion shortfall. Thoughts? Also, has this issue affected movie making yet? Well, Alexander is correct. I don't know how many giant cargo vessels are still backed up off the coast of California today. But yeah, I mean, we don't have enough personnel. It's so funny. We have a desperate need of people and materials to stop these supply chain problems. We're now suffering from hyperinflation. The dog food that it's already gourmet dog food, but the dog food I buy for Gilbert and Tallulah, I had to stop buying because the price went up 30% for dog food. And I'm like, it's already expensive. And I'm like, I had to switch to other brands. I don't know if that was a supply chain issue or what, but it's crazy in this day and age that we have supply chain issues. I mean, I guess it's not unexpected, but I don't know. We should see. But yeah, it's not good. It is not good. And it hasn't, as far as I know, I mean, it hasn't affected the movie industry. I don't know. You know, I guess tomorrow's Friday, and tomorrow is the day that Tango Shalom's supposed to be delivered on DVD. Will it be? I don't know. I'm sure it's affecting the movie industry in some way, shape, or form, but since I'm not actively in production right now, I couldn't tell you. Tom Jr. Jackson goes on to say, Rob, I loved Kathy as a guest. She loves the community here, and she followed me on Twitter. She's a great guest, and I hope she comes back. I'd like her to come back, too. I adored her. I love her husband, Dr. Yang. He's a great guy, and I thought she was terrific. She's definitely an imagination connoisseur herself and fits right into this community. I mean, I'd love to bring her on as maybe a commentator, a regular commentator on the channel. That's how much I liked her. So I haven't addressed that with her. I need to contact her and, you know, tell her how great she is and how we want her to come back on the channel. So I loved her. So I agree with you, Tom. Alexander Wilson goes on to say, I was having a discussion on Twitter about John Carter. I said that John Carter is a hard sell because the main character is a Confederate officer who becomes a superhero. I'm like, how do you tell that story in 2021? No, wait a minute. Okay. Here's the thing. I don't think I can't condemn, where yes, he's a Confederate soldier that becomes basically a white savior for all the natives. So perhaps you could look at it that way, that maybe, but I mean, I think that just adds to his interest as a character. It's like when you watch Westerns and they have Confederate cowboys or something, or gunslingers. I don't think that's necessarily problematic because once John Carter is transported to Barsoom, does it matter? I mean, I don't think that there's any indication that he's necessarily a slave-owning racist or something like that. He's a guy that grew up in the South, fought for the South, like so many people in the South. They just joined up, a nationalistic pride or whatever. But, I mean, I don't think that that's why, that was certainly a part of his, but if memory serves, that's the way he was written in Edgar Rice Burroughs' original novel, Princess of Mars, I think. And, if you look at it, what better way to be cured of your of any, say, problematic beliefs you may have than to fall in love with basically a red-skinned Deja Thoris and then have to become friends with the Tharks? I mean, he proves that he's open to diversity, certainly. Getting into an interspecies relationship, maybe, and then fighting with the Tharks. So, yeah, you could say that, but I don't think that's what hurt John Carter when it came out. I think it was murdered by Bob Iger, who, as I've said before on the show, did everything he could. He had to put the movie out. He did everything he could to make sure that movie was not marketed. How do you make a movie based on a book called A Princess of Mars, spend almost $250 million on it, and then release it as just John Carter? Not John Carter of Mars. And people say, well, all those movies with Mars in the title were failing. I mean, that was all bullshit. They needed to kill that movie. And, I mean, imagine you're watching that movie. It's just called John Carter. I mean, even the Marvel comic is called John Carter, Warlord of Mars. There's a title. Call it that. But no, it's just John Carter. And the original key art, just this silhouette. So, I think you could release that movie. I don't think the fact that he was a Confederate soldier is necessarily a problem. That's like saying that every German who fought in World War II for Germany was a part of the Nazi Party, which, of course, they were not. In many cases, people didn't have choices. They had to, if your nation decided to have a civil war, you know, you're fighting against the Yankees. You're not necessarily a racist, I don't think. Or do you believe in genocide the way a lot of German soldiers they've been couched that way? And I'm not supporting either way of life. I mean, the Confederacy they were seditious treasoners. They were. I mean, they were trying to end the Union. They were committing treason, and they were fighting to enslave other people. The economics of enslaving other people. It was bad. Alexander Wilson says, if you ever want to watch the world of black millennials, if you ever want to watch what the world of black millennials looks like, go watch the HBO show Insecure. I experienced so many themes that happen on the show. You should check it out. I've heard it's good. Didn't it get renewed? Is that Issa Rae's show? I'm not too familiar with it, but I would watch that. Sounds good to me. I'm down. I am down. So yeah. Well, Alexander, on that note, I think it's time to bring an end to Robservations episode 757, despite what the front of this episode says. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thanks for listening. What do you guys all think of Meta and the metaverse? I used to think Meta was a planet in space 1999, but look how far we've come from 1974 and 75, or in this case, 76 in the United States. Craziness. But I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank my moderating staff. We've got Justin Toner, Joshua Levesque, Louise X. Sparrow is here, who I saw earlier. Yep, there's Louise. So I want to thank all of you, my blue wrenches, for being the best blue wrenches on this crazy YouTube channel. What happens when YouTube goes like virtually? Couldn't it be cool if I could just like wander around the entire observatory and pick stuff up virtually? I could do these shows virtually. Of course, I'd have to give myself like a Chris Hemsworth body or something, but it'd kind of be fun to do that. I'd be into that. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel via super chats and tips. If you want to write me letters, you can at theburnettwork.net. And all of that. Tomorrow I will be back. I should mention we're going to have an epic midnight metal on Saturday night. Of course, it starts at the first minute of Halloween. Halloween at midnight Pacific time. Will it be Pacific? Do we change over this week? I don't know. When does daylight saving time happen? Or do we fall back? So we have to look. We fall back. So daylight. Let's see. Daylight savings 2001. Let's see what it says here. No. Daylight saving time ends next week. So we are not falling back. Spring forward, fall back. It will happen Pacific time, the standard time, where Pacific Daylight Time at midnight on Saturday night to Sunday morning. We are going to have a fun-filled romp. We are going to have special guests. I don't even know who they are yet. I'm organizing some guests, but it's going to be a long one, a guest-filled Halloween. So hopefully it'll be loads of fun. And we'll see how many people actually come. We'll see. It should be quite interesting. But on that note, and of course, Lael and will be back tomorrow on Midnight Metal for a scintillating topic of conversation. And on that note, I would say to all of you, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, have a better day. And remember, if you ever want to see Tango Shalom, now's the time. It's on VOD all across North America starting tomorrow. Tango Shalom will come out tomorrow. It's really only a day away. Sorry about Europe. Russia on the 4th of November. And it's going to be opening in Benelux, the Benelux territories, Israel, other places. Not France, Germany, Spain, or Italy yet, but who knows? Please don't buy it on the Pirate Bay. And on that note, I bid you a fond farewell.